Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are doing Elements of Lit. If you watched that long, lengthy, ranty video about me talking about conflict, and you're ready to move on to the next one, okay? The next element we're going to deal with is symbolism. So let's go ahead and start simple. We're going to title our page Elements of Lit. Symbolism is going to be a fun one. At least I like symbolism. Okay. What is symbolism? Symbolism is very much like theme. It can be the easiest thing and the most difficult thing, depending on who you are as a student, reader, or writer. Remember, let's go back to the conflict lesson real quick. With conflict, I specifically reminded you in this video that you need to unlearn what you have learned. You need to embrace the fact that your interpretation of a story is the one that matters, okay? There are going to be situations where other readers, whether they're parents, teachers, friends, whatever, there might be other people who are going to be like, no, this thing right here is the only correct answer. That's wrong. That is wrong, okay? I want you to embrace your interpretation of the story. So with conflict, remember, we talked about how all types of conflict could work. What matters is, can you argue for them? It's going to be the same thing here, all right? Anything and everything is a symbol in a story. What matters is, can you argue for what it represents, all right? So let's start off with the basic definition, okay? The definition I have here is that symbols are important focal points in the story. Symbols are important focal points in the story, all right? What can be a symbol? Symbols can be anything, comma, they are everywhere. What matters is my ability to argue what they mean. Okay, so what are symbols? Important focal points in the story. And then I wrote a little note here to remind myself that symbols can be anything. They are literally everywhere. What matters is, can you make an argument for what they represent, okay? It's not enough to just tell me like, oh yeah, this object that the character is holding is like an important symbol. Sure it is. I get that. What does it represent? What does it do? Okay? And when you're trying to think about symbolism, you really want to tell me like, what does it emotionally represent? That's going to be the best way to look at it, all right? So what I'm going to do right here is make a little section that says common symbolic elements. Common, or just common symbols. Common symbols. Doesn't really matter, right? We're going to make a huge list here. So, okay. Now, I think this list is pretty definitive. I'm pretty sure I captured everything. But if I missed anything on this list, then, you know, just add it in here. All right? Or just let me know so I can change the video. So these are the things you're going to want to pay attention to. Now, keep in mind, I already told you that symbols could be literally anything. So I'm going to give you a list that's basically going to cover anything, all right? Don't be that kid and just be like, anything. Yeah, don't do that. I mean, you want to focus, like, sorry. The whole point of this video is for you to, like, hone in your skills about what to pay attention to. So this is going to be a list of things that you should potentially pay attention to, depending on what you're trying to do, all right? The first symbolic element that you're going to want to pay attention to are elements of nature, seasons, or weather. So elements of seasons, nature, or weather. Okay. Now, take a look at something like Frozen, all right? Frozen 1 obviously has the element of cold, okay, or ice. And then Frozen 2 obviously jumps into wind and fire and water and whatever, right? That story is literally full of symbols relating to elements of nature. So there you go. Okay. The next thing that we're going to really want to pay attention to is color. Okay. Color is a huge thing. Color palettes in movies, like the color tone or the mood or whatever it is that's being shown on screen, the color of the film or video game or whatever is especially important. Okay. If you have a movie like What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, which is this is a book by, oh my God, I'm totally spacing out, Richard Matheson. What Dreams May Come is literally a movie or a story about the afterlife, and the afterlife is represented with paintings in the beginning of it, and the entire like color palette of the movie will just shift as the story goes on because like bad things happen, right? To give you a book example, I think I've already mentioned this before, but in House of Leaves, I don't know if you guys have paid attention, but the word house is in blue in every single page of this book, including the copyright pages. If the word house is mentioned, it is in blue because it's part of a symbol with the house in question that's in the story. That's a thing, okay? So color is definitely an important symbol. Moving on from that, you're going to have specific objects. Okay, specific objects are definitely going to be a particular symbol. It just kind of depends on what they are and what they do. Now I'm keeping that one vague because later on in this list I'm going to get a little more particular. So, we'll touch back on what that one means. Moving forward, you're going to have spatial elements or cardinal directions. Okay, spatial elements. Spatial elements / cardinal directions. Now, if you don't know what those mean, cardinal directions are your north, south, east, and west. If you didn't know that, you are now today years old when you found that out. Okay, north, south, east, and west. That's what cardinal directions mean. For spatial elements, that means like elements in three-dimensional space. The best example I can give is Ender's Game, wherever Ender's Game went. In Ender's Game, this involves kids in the book having to fight each other in a football-sized arena that is in zero gravity. Okay, so imagine a gigantic cube. Don't look up the movie because the movie totally gets it wrong. Imagine a gigantic cube that is in space and kids have to literally fight in that with guns or whatever they have around them. And so in a story like that, when you're dealing with so many people, because on each team there's like 40 kids, with a situation like that that is so big, you need to have the reader anchor themselves to maybe a certain character or location in the environment so they can understand what is going on. So the author had to take special care to describe spatial elements, like things in three-dimensional space, so the reader wouldn't get lost. Okay. Now, is that like necessarily a symbol? I mean, it just kind of depends, It really just depends on what the author is doing. The next thing you have are geographic elements, natural landmarks, and locations. Geographic elements. And again, sorry if this is going really fast. These lessons are supposed to be supplemental lessons to what I teach in my classroom. So most of my students have already heard this lecture, so they already know what it is. In case you're curious, I'm going to re-record all these videos over summer and make them a little bit slower and more detailed. All right, so anyway, what are geographic elements or natural landmarks? Think about Arizona. What is because I'm in Arizona, what is like the big icon of our state as far as like natural environment goes? Most people would immediately go to, oh yeah, the Grand Canyon, right? The Grand Canyon is basically like our biggest natural landmark. But there's also like Antelope Canyon, there's Sedona, there are the Flagstaff lava tubes, there's places down by Tombstone, there's Jerome. Jerome is like definitely a geographic element because it's like a town that's built on a hill, or a mountain at least. So yeah, natural landmarks or locations can be really, really important. If you ever have like, if you're wanting to talk about filmmaking here, a lot of movies, and by a lot I mean like almost all of them, will do these things called establishing shots. So establishing shots are basically where you get a quick citywide view of something before it transitions to an actual scene. The movie Inception does this quite often. You'll get like a whole establishing shot of like a city for just a few seconds, and then you'll go to like your main characters walking down a street or walking down a road, hallway, whatever, and then the scene actually plays. So you're able to tell really quickly, oh yeah, okay, now we've changed location, now we're here. All right, so that can be a symbol depending on what they're doing with the location. The next thing you're going to have are animals or important figures. Animals are important figures. Now this one should be pretty obvious, especially if you've ever seen a Disney film. Because in Wreck-It Ralph 2, they even made fun of that. Basically, every female princess in Disney's universe has an animal sidekick. And yeah, that's pretty accurate. Let's go off of Moana, man. And Moana was supposed to have Pua, who is the adorable little pig. And like they were totally building Pua up to be like the sidekick. Man, he was going to be like the one, and he's adorable. And then they didn't do that. They decided to give Moana freaking Hey or whatever his name is. Yeah, so we got stuck with that thing, that monstrosity for the rest of the movie. Oh my god, it was terrible. So, yeah, if you have an animal sidekick, your chances of becoming a Disney princess go up a little bit on the scale. So animals definitely help out. Now, like, I also mentioned important figures here, okay? So, for important figures, that can obviously be applied to, like, a very, very, very large number of people. But, like, to give you a really simplistic example, you know, in Star Wars, you have R2-D2. R2-D2 is an important figure who, like, follows around Luke Skywalker. And, yeah, that's just what you get. So he is an important... He's not really an animal. He's a robot, so, you know. But he acts like an animal because he's, like, constantly following Luke around and doing his own thing. All right, next. Ideas, emotions, and dreams. Ideas, emotions, and dreams. Dreams are a huge one in movies in particular, because dreams are so surreal, and film is kind of done in a dreamlike, surreal fashion. So that could be a thing. Like, if you've ever had a dream sequence in a movie or story, period, the dream sequence often is used as a plot device for characters to realize something later on or to be scared of something. So that could work, right? Now, just general ideas can be symbols, because maybe you have a character like Red Rising, you know. In Red Rising, there is a character that has to sacrifice themselves, and in the process, they plant one little tiny idea in other characters' minds, and that grows into a huge thing. So ideas can definitely be an important symbol as well. Or if you have seen Inception, Inception, the movie, is about planting an idea in people's minds. The idea itself becomes a symbol, and they have to even do that by using symbols in the story. So that could be a thing. Okay, moving on. Special weapons, utilities, tools, or objects of desire. Special weapons, weapons, utilities, tools, and objects of desire. Okay, this one's going to be pretty easy for most people because they have seen Marvel films. So, like, think about any Marvel movie in general. The most important thing that you're going to have are, like, the Infinity Stones or the Infinity Gauntlet, things like that. For special weapons, like, I've already brought this up before, but the Soul Reaver from the Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver series, that eventually becomes, like, the big icon for Raziel, the main character. He can summon it at will. For other special weapons like Batman's Batarang, or, you know, in Naruto, their kunai that they throw around, or like explosive tags, or, you know, Superman's outfit or his cape, you know, that's important, or Green Lantern's, you know, ring. Yeah, Deadpool's katanas, Wolverine's claws. Like, I mean, all of those things are like special utilities, tools, or whatever for those characters. They become representations of those characters, and that's what makes them symbolic. So, Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's so many things out there. I could give examples for days, and I don't want to because you're probably already sick of hearing how many examples I have. All right, so next you have religious artifacts. Okay, sorry, one more. Okay, lightsabers. Woo, lightsabers. Religious artifacts. Or devices. I say devices because if you've ever played Assassin's Creed is a game, that deals with like ancient history and all that, but every single Assassin's Creed story eventually brings in this thing called the Piece of Eden, which is supposed to be a divine artifact. You end up finding out it's like alien technology or whatever, but it's used as like a religious thing, like a holy hand grenade or something like that. Even there, holy hand grenade from Monty Python. Okay, there you go. For other religious artifacts, if you've ever seen the movie The Book of Eli, that is like a huge one. I don't want to give spoilers away. One of my students brought up a really good one. They were talking about The Nun and Conjuring, and in The Conjuring you have the Annabelle doll, or you'll have like the nun, the painting of the nun, things like that. So religious artifacts or devices can definitely be symbolic. The Bible itself is a symbol, or any religious text is a symbol, really. So that's just how it is. Okay, the last thing that I have on this list are ordinary objects. Ordinary objects or things. So take a second and look at this list in case you missed anything, but I think that pretty much covers it. As far as like how many different symbols can exist out there, there's a lot of them. Now, talking about ordinary objects, I mentioned earlier in the list you have specific objects, right? So here's kind of the distinguishing factor. So there is a writing principle called Chekhov's gun, okay? Chekhov's gun is the idea that everything in your story must have a purpose. And if you have something that does not serve the plot, it should not be there. It's like putting fluff in an essay, right? So Chekhov's gun is usually described as like kind of something like this. Close your eyes, humor me, close your eyes. Okay, imagine it's cold outside and you have a wood cabin. Okay, and inside this wood cabin, you have a giant fireplace with a fire going. It's a nice cozy fire. And on the floor, you have like a fur rug, and there's like a little seating area right in front of the fire as well. Now, over the fireplace, let's just say that I'm focusing the camera on the mantle above the fire. Okay, and on the mantelpiece, there sits a gun. All right, let's just say that I'm a filmmaker. You can open your eyes now, by the way, in case you humored me. As a filmmaker, let's just say that I chose to focus on that gun that is above the fireplace, all right? So Chekhov's gun comes from that example, and that means that at some point in that story, that gun needs to fire. That gun has to go off or be used somehow, because otherwise, why would I draw attention to it, right? So that's the whole thing. Chekhov's gun is the principle that if you're going to have something in a story, it must be used. Like, for example, you wouldn't want to have a movie where, you have an empty room, but there's a table in the middle of this empty room, and on the table is this pen, right? And you focus really intently on this pen. Well, it would be a huge letdown if like nothing happened to the pen, because as an audience member or reader, you'd be like, why am I looking at this? Why does it matter, right? So everything in your story has to have a purpose, okay? To give you some examples of bad Chekhov's gun, there are a lot of examples. I really should just make a list of these. Ready Player One, which I think is a terrible, no offense to anyone that likes it, I think it's a terrible book, terrible movie. There are things that it brings up that it never uses. There's also like the latest Star Wars films, like if you've seen The Last Jedi, there are entire arcs that the characters go through, like missions that the characters go through that amount to literally nothing. Yeah, so that could be an example of bad Chekhov's gun. If you're going to introduce an idea, you have to use it. Oh, here, I can think of one really quickly. Okay. Since we're talking about Star Wars. In Star Wars, the new films, so the new series that's out, you have Kylo Ren, right? And Kylo Ren's like the big evil bad guy. Oh my God, right? Well, in The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren at some point brings up, or like somewhere it's mentioned that he has like, before he came into power, he has this like squad, right? He's got a squad of friends called the Knights of Ren. And, you know, ever since The Force Awakens came out, fans were like, bro, we got to see the Knights of Ren. We got to see them because, like, you know, there was concept art and people were just like, we got to see these dudes fight. Like, these people are legit. And then The Last Jedi came out, and, like, how much of these guys did you get? Nothing at all. You got nothing. People were like, where are the Knights of Ren at? And it just kind of went nowhere. And then when The Rise of Skywalker, the last film that came out, we were like, all right, the Knights of Ren, man, they're going to be like doing a huge thing. They're going to be a big part of the story. Nah, they're just like in some fight scene that's like 5 minutes long at the end of the movie. And even then, you never even see their names or faces, and you don't even see anything special about them. They were literally just kind of thrown away. Another good example would be this. Like, we're talking about characters that are useless or that are poorly used here, because characters can be symbolic and then just cast aside like they don't matter. Captain Phasma. Captain Phasma is this incredibly strong female antagonist in the latest Star Wars films. And in both The Last Jedi and Force Awakens, like you thought for sure there's going to be like a huge significance to this character. And no, she just got thrown away. She literally just like falls off screen like a couple times, and that's like all we get. It's like, then why would you bother bringing it up? Like, don't introduce an element to your story if you're not going to actually give it a purpose. So anyway, that's enough ranting. That's symbolism, children. I hope that you enjoyed that one. I could literally talk about symbolism all day. Oh yeah, I have a final joke for you, if you guys have seen this one. So, you know, okay, not gonna lie, I got a lot of flack as an English teacher because I'm like, oh yeah, symbolism, whoa, right? Well, there are a lot of kids that like to make fun of English teachers by posting this meme. So like if an author has a detail that's like a dress or a door that's painted blue, there are English teachers that are like, oh my God, oh, right, so meaningful, right? Well, like maybe the author just liked that color and they just picked it, you know. There's always that one English teacher who's like, oh my God, her dress is blue because it represents her internal turmoil with the faults of her relationship, and she's so sad on the inside. She has to wear blue to be an expression of her soul because she can't show her emotions out in public. Oh my God. Right? Sometimes there are people like that, and it's like, what if the author writing the story just like asked their friend, like, hey, what color should her dress be? Oh, blue? Okay, I like that color. Like, you know, not everything. That's why I want to say, like, everything is a symbol and not everything is a symbol. It just kind of depends on you. So, yeah. In The Great Gatsby, for example, The Great Gatsby, there's like this green light at the end of Gatsby's dock or whatever, or Daisy's dock, and it's a representation of Gatsby's desire for Daisy, and but it's green, so it represents greed and money. Oh man, so symbolic. Like, maybe it's just a green light, you know. Maybe that's it. Maybe Fitzgerald just like wanted a green light, man. Maybe that's all it is. I don't know. You tell me. Do English teachers analyze symbolism too much? I don't know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. There's only 2 elements left, so if you're going to knock them out, then go on to the next section. Peace.